Welcome to Making Sales Simple, podcast by Helen Tebay, the sales lady. Brilliant. So thank you so much for joining me. We've got our guest here today, Pete Starr from Chilli Developments and Wayvie as well. So Pete, thank you for joining us. Do you want to introduce yourself, tell the audience a bit about you and your businesses?
Yeah, good morning, Helen. So my main business is Chilli, which has been focusing on sales and leadership and service just over 8 years now. And then as of last year, set up a new business called Wayvie to focus for training and development but specifically for green, environmentally focused teams that are very purpose driven in what they do. So a little bit like having two children. You think having a second child is a great idea, but then it's a whole lot of work. But it's because of the purpose that's behind it, about trying to do what we can do to enable people to improve their performance so that they can do their thing that helps the environment.
Yeah, I love that. What kind of businesses do you work with?
For Wayvie in particular, anything that is either a green business in its entirety, so it might be like solar panel installations or hydrogen gas or EV point installations, or green teams within organisations. So the sustainability teams are a big one, who are often undermanned and under-resourced, and they've got massive um, opportunity and challenge to change businesses as a whole. So helping them from a change management perspective. With regard to Chilli, pretty broad church around sales and leadership and service.
Yeah, so you and I actually had the pleasure of working together, and I met Pete. You were training me as well. I worked for a company.
Yeah,
I was in a sales team, and that was the first time I met you. Excellent trainer, excellent communicator, and loved the sales and the customer service that you taught. So if you have a sales team, for sure, reach out to Pete, because I think there's something there for sure in terms of how you can help, especially purpose driven in the green sector. That's your bag, that's your area, that's your specialty. So for sure, be reaching out to Pete, because I have personally trained with you and also been trained by you. Really, really good. So yeah, very effective. So there's a little
thank you.
plug for you.
Thank you. And there's lots of people that say to us when we're trainers and we go into the room of people who've got, like, if you like, a proper job. There's lots of people who grab us afterwards and say, "Hey, I'd really like to do what you do, and tell me how you do it."
Did
Blah
I
blah blah.
do that?
And you did do that, but you are possibly the only person who's actually followed through with it and actually made it happen. Because it is something that people are attracted to,
Yeah.
but it's not an easy life. It's not an easy job to do, and it takes a level of commitment and balls, and for the universe to kind of line up in the right sort of way sometimes.
Yeah.
And to see where you are now is just fantastic. It's great to see you on this journey.
Thank you so much. And you did help me with that. I remember some chats in the beginning where I was like, what the fuck have I done? Like, oh no, like, what am I doing? I've screwed my life up. And actually, I'm so glad I did it, because I get to help people, and I get to use my brain, and I get to do things in a different way, and I get to do it my way. And that's extremely rewarding and fulfilling. Also, making your own money is quite fulfilling, because I think the thing that people struggle with in the beginning is that from going from a regular paid job where you get the same amount of money every month on the same date, it feels a bit, well, I need that security.
Yeah,
And somebody said this to me, it might have been you, Pete, but you
right.
create your own security when you're self-employed. You create that certainty by going out to work and getting the work in yourself, and backing yourself to be able to do that. And it's a certain level of security that no one can take that from you, because that's you and that's yours. So it's kind of
Yeah,
replaced, but with the thing that a lot of people fear the most. Um,
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think, and we see this a lot in purpose-driven organisations where people have got a real desire to do something that is helpful. Almost in the olden days, it's I want to just set up my own business, whatever that is. But now it's I want to set up my own business to change the planet. So
yeah,
they're taking on a much bigger task there, and typically it's easier if you're in your 20s and you don't have a mortgage, you don't have kids, you don't have three dogs to look after and all that sort of stuff. You can go for things without, if it all crashes, you've not lost that much because you're kind of that sort of age, and you kind of view risk in a different way. But as you get older and you do get those things that are a financial tie to you, then it becomes really tough. And yeah, I back myself and what have you. It doesn't mean we don't have wobbles. Doesn't mean that we don't think, oh my goodness, wouldn't it have been easier? I've got friends who worked at Tesco's when I was 19 who stayed there and are just retiring now in their early 50s, on big fat pensions. Um, and there's always that little part of you that thinks, oh, that could have been me. That could that could have been me playing golf 3 days a week. But I think that's the thing, when you've got a purpose and you've got a drive and you've got that desire that's inside you, it's an asset and a curse. And we'll probably talk about the curse element of it. But it's an
Yeah,
asset because it can make you do the tough things, and want to drive a certain path because of your belief. And I think
yeah.
that's if you've got that, then that's half the battle. But taming that and not letting that overpower the entire thing that you run as a business is also something that you've got to grapple with.
Yeah, I would say the strength becomes the weakness at times.
Mm,
Strength is my drive. People see me on LinkedIn. I'm relentless on it. That's my drive because I want to put an immense amount of value out there.
yeah,
But also, it's a bit of a curse at times because I can burn out, and I get tired, and so the strength becomes the weakness in some way.
yeah,
One thing that you mentioned that I really think would help my audience is whether you're employed by someone and you're an account manager, account executive, BDM, or you have your own business and you're responsible for selling, whoever you are, the responsibility of
mm,
sales sits on your shoulders, and you are in a purpose-driven organization, either or
yeah,
your own business. Um, Talking about money and making money when you're purpose driven sometimes just doesn't chime. It
mm,
can grate a little bit. And that's where I see people, if they just worked on that uncomfortableness from within, they would be able to do so much more. And you're purpose driven, so you make more impact.
yeah,
So money for me is a direct correlation to impact that you make. So if you're a purpose driven business or you're doing purpose driven work and getting paid for it, you're going to have to get better and more comfortable at talking about money, handling money objections, um, your own money kind of shit going on in your head because
yeah.
it's a direct correlation to it.
Mm,
So, yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Because you've seen a lot, we've coached and trained a lot of purpose driven sales teams between us, but
yeah.
you've seen a lot more with Wayvie. So, talk to me a bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I like the history of sales. Sales has been around as a way of being for thousands of years. In all the markets and all that sort of stuff. And then this probably the stereotype of sales, which was really bad for sales, was the snake oil salesman in the 1800s. The railroads kind of, depending on which version of history you look at, but the railways enabled people to travel, and it was typically the traveling salesperson that went out and did all of that stuff. And you had to be driven for that because you were out on the road for 6 weeks. You only earned money if you sold, and that money that you earned went to your family or to whatever life that you want. So it kind of created this stereotype and this beast almost of what is a salesperson, that it is very egocentric and very about, to some extent, greed. It's about what can I earn for myself, and that drives, again, the strength becomes a weakness. It drives that drive to go out and do the uncomfortable stuff, and it's not glamorous, and it's hard graft, and then you get the reward for it, but that reward is for you. So when it comes to purpose driven, and I've seen this for business owners who are leading the charge typically of their business, and also account managers who are selling something that's purpose driven, they've often moved to that way because they kind of feel uncomfortable about the commercials. They feel uncomfortable about
Mhm.
that kind of greed element. It just doesn't sit right with them. And so we've almost got a new breed of salespeople that are employed now, where that money for their own money's sake in a purpose-driven business is not there. They've joined that organization because they want to plant a billion zillion trees, or to kind of create enough wind turbines to kind of to completely take over the grid. Whatever it is that the purpose is that they've got, that's their motivator. And we see this in the third sector a little bit as well, the charitable sectors and the like, where people go and work for, um, Age UK, we've got as our next door neighbours upstairs in our office, for instance, and they go there because if you're going to go and use the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the self-actualization at the top piece of that is, I'm going to do something that gives back because it makes me feel good, and I've got everything else that I need. I've got my security, I've got all of that belonging, etc., etc. Um, so when you're doing that sort of good, getting paid for it and getting paid well for it and making profit out of it can sometimes clash, because you
Yeah,
think, this
yeah.
it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right. And when I first had a sales job, I only took it because it paid 3 grand extra and it had a company van. It was with Coca-Cola, and I could have literally, that was it. I could have been an NVQ assessor dealing with people and training and all that sort of wonderful good stuff, but no. And I was rubbish at it. And I was rubbish at it because the stereotype was very self-centered. And I'm a
Mm,
I'm a people pleaser at heart, Helen,
yeah,
and that's a
me
blessing
too.
and a curse. Um, it was only when I switched my mindset, and I think this is key for any business owner or purpose-driven individual that's responsible for driving business and making profit as well. For me, it was, I will sell something, I will help somebody buy something if what I've got is going to add value to them.
Oh, I
And
love that. Will you say it again?
I will help somebody buy something if what I've got is of value to them and it will
Oh,
help them.
yeah. And then the
Yeah,
flashlight's off you, then, isn't it? It's all about
totally.
helping other people. And I think that shift from sales being a self-centered activity to actually being a customer-centric activity, it's actually the highest form of service because you're helping people.
Yeah,
And then the clients always have agency. They can say yes or no. It's just an invitation or an offer to either join a webinar or like buy a product or, like, do you want to come
yeah,
to this masterclass? It's always
yeah.
an offer or an invitation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then the pressure's off, and sometimes I've had moments where I've said, "Listen, this isn't for you. You need to sort this out, this out, this out, this out. And if you sort those things out, then let's have a chat again." But at this point, no. And again, there's a part of me that's screaming inside, so what are you doing? Just sell it, sell it, sell it. But it just kind of clashes with me. So it's that,
Yeah,
for me, most of our life success and how we judge happiness, how we judge success, all that sort of stuff is how we view it. It's what our mindset is. And sometimes it needs that reframe. And I think that's really, really important in purpose driven organizations. And if you don't make money, you end up closing your doors, and then you can't help anybody in the future. So if a charity can't raise funds, if it doesn't have volunteers on the streets, if it can't make a profit, then it goes. If it can't recruit good employees and pay them a wage where they're happy with what they've got, then it won't work. If they've got to pay them less, those people ultimately, to a large extent, will go somewhere else, and then you won't have great people working in your great organisation. So it's thinking in this. I'm sat having a conversation with a potential client. If what I've got can help them in their world, and I can help them buy, I need to make some profit out of that, because then I can do it again for the next client, and I can do it again for the next client. And
yeah,
potentially, if my business grows, I can get somebody else in, give somebody else employment, and they can do it for a client, and they can do it for a client.
yeah,
And I think purpose driven in our world is the green environmental, with saving the planet. There's a long way to go before we get to that point where the job is done.
yeah,
So we have to grow. Without commercial, the environment will not change. We will not hit net zero. We need governments, we need social trends, etc. But we need commercial organisations to do the bulk of the heavy lifting, in my opinion, about driving forward towards net zero.
yeah. I love that. And it's so true, isn't it? We'll have this thought about our relationship with money and sales and making profit. And it's deemed, I think, from that, like you say, way back, that historical, like learnt information, or someone will
Yeah,
tell you stuff. Like, I spoke to another business owner the other day, and we were just talking about what our charges were, what we bill out at. And she said, I could never charge that. I'm not greedy. And I
yeah,
was like, oh, that's interesting. Neither am I. But if I also ask my clients to get up here from a financial point of view, and it's not out of the realms of possibility,
Yeah.
but like if I ask them to pay, I don't know, like £3,000, £6,000, whatever it is, yes, it
Mm.
is an investment. It is a lot of money, but my God, they're going to get that back,
Yeah.
and they are going to show up completely different to that. I'm going
Mm.
to show up completely different to that. We're going to get a bigger like boom or impact. And if you're impact driven, that's huge. So actually there's
Yeah.
a benefit from asking your clients to pay and to pay a figure, whatever that figure is for you, but one that stretches you both, because you're
Mm.
not going to be complacent. You're going to show up, you're going to you're going to squeeze every last drop out of that. I think the
Yeah.
first investment I ever made in myself in my business was £99. And then the last investment I made in my business was just shy of £12,000.
Yeah.
I could not, in that first year, have imagined spending that money on my business and investing it in me and in the business, but I did, and it's
Mm.
paid like tenfold. Like it just keeps paying back. But I had
Yeah.
to really shift my mind to be able to spend that money. I would not have been able to do that in the beginning because I just had all kind of weird relationships about money and about spending it and about is it crass and like oh that's like really gauche and people that make money, you have a perception, you get told, you get this like learned information. People that have a lot of money are flashy, that's one of the things that I got taught when I was younger, and it's just a
Yeah.
narrative that my parents like gave to me. You've got to work hard for money, and I think you said it,
Yeah.
you've got to create value and impact for money, but you don't
Yeah.
have to slug your guts out. Like you can do it and feel a little easier and a little lighter and give
Yeah.
amazing value.
Yeah. And I'm from council estate in Manchester with Insure, and we didn't have that much grew up. I was fortunate in the family dynamic we had that we went on holiday and stuff like that. But I've got those northern values, and I do have a client who said your prices are too cheap, and it's like yeah, but it's good for me. Like yeah, but the perception is from others you buy cheap, buy twice. You're too cheap, therefore the
Yeah,
quality's not going to be there. So there's so many interesting dynamics to play, and I don't think that well, some people get really comfortable with it on the face of it from what they tell me. They say, yeah, I charge 3 grand a day and that's fine because I've got this, that, and that and the other. But I think a lot of people grapple with it. A lot of business owners grapple with it, without a doubt. And I think what you described there is really important. You went from spending 99 quid to 12 grand. You didn't spend 12 grand straight away, and you shouldn't have done, but you build towards these things. And I think that's
yeah,
for most change in life, you view the journey rather than that end destination and think, okay, well, if I do want to get really comfortable at selling at a value price point for my purpose driven product or service, if I want to get to that place, but I'm here now, how can I just take that first step? How can I nudge it that first? Which of my 10% of my customers would take a price increase? What if I kept the prices for all of my existing customers, and for any new customers I added 10% on and got comfortable with it that way? So there's
yeah,
lots of different things that you can do to kind of move towards there rather than think you've got a light switch
yeah,
from one to the other. If you
that,
can light switch and it can work for you, then happy days.
yeah,
But I think for most people, it's about shifting the dial each day rather than kind of
yeah.
transformational.
And being coached on it as well. Coaching and mentoring is
Mm,
a great tool for working through your, I call it headship, but like your
yeah,
thoughts and feelings, your mindset, thoughts and feelings on relationship with money. If you
yeah,
want to be able to handle money objections from your customers and win more business and create more impact with whatever product or service you're selling to them, then
yeah,
of course you need to be able to handle your own money objection. Because
yeah,
otherwise, if they say something like, oh, it's a bit tight right now, I'll have to go and check cash flow, and that's what you say, and you never move past that point, and you don't invest and you don't spend, it's going to be
mm,
really hard for you to move them past that because you're just going to be really agreeable to it. You're just
yeah,
going to be like, oh, yeah, me too. That's how I make decisions. That sounds really reasonable. I'm out. And they
yeah,
still have a problem and they'll go off. And normally, when I'd say 9 times out of 10, when someone says, I need to go and think about it, if you ask them, can we explore it now? And they say yes, great, because I think they really do want to be a yes. They're just scared. They're trying to assess the
sure,
risk, scared
yeah,
of moving the money around and spending it and getting the result. That's worth exploring. If they're like, no, I'm just out, I just don't want
hmm,
to talk about it, it's just not for me, I don't want to spend money that way, I don't want to do that, then you're out. That's fine. You can leave them to it. The door's open. You can re-engage, but that's cool.
Mm.
And I think when we think about money and sales, and we don't want to be pushy with it. That's for me the boundary for pushy. If you ask, can we explore what's going on there? And they say
Yeah.
yes, great. You can ask the questions and see what do they really mean when they say cash flow,
Yeah.
because it means
Yeah.
something for every business owner. If
Yeah.
they say
Yeah.
no, I'm all right with that. Thanks. We've just taken me as far as I need to go, and I'm cool with what we talked about. I'm just going to be a no, and I don't
Mhm.
want to talk about it anymore. Then we just leave it, and then we're not pushing. But push is really good for sales, in my eyes, when you are pushing for your client. When you're pushing for your
Yeah.
client to just like make decisions that they feel good about, we can push all day long for that, because you're on their team. You're like pushing from the ring side in their corner. Whereas I think that old school sales person that you described, they were pushing for
Mm.
them, for their sale, for their money, for them. And
Totally.
we have that, like
Yeah.
I say, that learnt information of like that's what sales must mean. So I think, to summarize, the first thing is to clean up the relationship you've got with selling, sales, money. What are you making
Hmm.
it mean? If you make money, don't make money, conversations about money, where does it feel really uncomfortable for you? And we need to
Yeah.
clean that up. And that might be coaching and mentoring, having someone help move you past, so you can help more clients move past it as well, especially in purpose industries. That's going to be huge because you can create more impact. So that would be
Yeah.
my kind of summary. What's your kind of couple of points from you, Pete, to summarize?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I love that kind of phrase about cleaning up your thinking. And I, I've seen a massive uptake in coaching in the last few years, both corporate and business owner coaching. And how much is due to the pandemic and the fact that we don't work physically with people as much or not? I don't know, but all I'm seeing is a big uptake in coaching at all levels, at CEO level
Yeah,
through down below. And I think the interesting thing about coaching is that you're on the other person's agenda and you stay on that agenda. And so what comes out is stuff that's deep in here that for some people they have never actually shared or articulated before. And it can be really really insightful because of that, and ultimately really powerful. And you're a coach, I'm a coach, but we have coaches as well,
yeah,
because that process of coaching is so useful.
yeah.
And I love I got the clip that you did the other day about being pushy and customer service. I'm one of the least pushy people going, like, yeah, whatever. But that element of customer service, and that's where I think if you can see the value that you add to that person, then it's not being pushy. It's helping them improve their world based on the fact that you really genuinely believe that. And I've been in sales jobs, and you probably have, Helen, as well, when you don't believe in the product, you
Yeah,
don't believe in the service,
yeah.
you believe that you've got a target to hit, and you go through the motions for that, and that's not great at all. But if you believe in what you're all about, then and you can add value, then it's not being pushy at all. It's
No,
just making the thing that you believe happen and happen
I
quicker.
I give my clients an exercise, and I'll share this with anyone that's watching. And if it's helpful, share it on as well. And actually, this is a really good point. Please do subscribe on YouTube or follow on Spotify so you don't miss episodes like this, because it's super high value. But if you can't see the value of why someone will book a consultation call with you or buy your product, and just choose one of them. If you're not seeing it in all of it, just do it on one thing first. But whatever's not like, whatever feels like it's out of alignment for you, and it feels weird to sell, or it feels uncomfortable, just go there for a bit. And I give my clients like 50 reasons, and 50 is huge, but it's for a reason. It's not 10 or 15 or 20. 50 reasons why it's super high value, why they're going to
Hmm.
get 10 times, 20 to 100 times more value than what you're charging. So, and I did this work. I had to do this work because I was like, yeah, it's kind of all right. I mean, like me showing up like, yeah, it's kind of all right. Do you want it? Versus, oh my God, like I am on your, this is going to do the thing that you need this absolutely now. Like, this is the results we're going to get. It was
Yeah.
so different. I was creating such a different experience for my clients because I couldn't see it. And then I was like, oh, but I'm asking you to see it. You can't ask your clients
Mm.
to go first. You've got to go first. You've got to know the value of what you're selling, 100% believe it. And if you don't, if you're like, yeah, I'm kind of like a a 50%, I'd say 7 out of 10
Yeah.
you can sell. But like if it's only
Hmm.
less than 70%, you're going to have to do this work. Why is it so valuable? Why should they pay you? Why is it going to pay off like 10 times more than the price you charge? If you can't
Yeah.
answer that, you can't. That's the question the clients are asking in a sales conversation. They might not verbalize it, but especially with purpose driven, this like really chimes with you guys. Like, absolutely, like just let it all out, write it all
Mm.
down. And then when someone's like, yeah, it's a bit expensive, you're like, oh no, 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 hang on, let me have a look at all this good stuff that we're going to give you, that you're going to get, that you're going to gain. Let me
Yeah.
talk you through all of that. And it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
about you, the flashlights off you, it's about them and the value they get.
Yeah, totally, totally. And what we see in the purpose driven, the old marketing bell curve, you got the early adopters, the innovators at the front end who would queue up for the iPhone, the new iPhone for 3 days and what have you. And then you got the pragmatists and the conservatists and the laggards at the back end. When you're, particularly if you're a business owner, you're going to have a social circle. You've got friends, you've got family, you go down the pub, whatever. And people say, oh, what are you up to? And you'll say, this is what I'm up to, and you'll have reactions from people like, oh, that is amazing, that's brilliant, and some, oh, that's interesting, and some, that'll never work. And when you're selling it purpose driven, or when you're selling anything, but selling purpose driven stuff in particular, the early adopters and innovators who are on your page, they're going to be the easy ones to sell to, but they're the minority.
Yeah.
And I think it's really easy to then see the majority and think, oh God, I just can't persuade them. I just can't get them over the line. I need to therefore be cheap, because cheap
Yeah.
makes it easier.
Yeah.
But actually, that's where you need to build on that confidence and just chip away at that kind of
Yeah.
group. And talking to the converted is easy. Talking to the people who are slightly on the fence, who's that kind of next group, that's a bit more of a challenge. Particularly because some of the people you talk to are going to be the laggards who will be like, oh, that bloody thing, that's never going to work. What's the waste of time in that? He says, oh, range anxiety, I'm never going to get an electric car because the range, oh, I saw this bloke pull over once because he ran out of electric. That'll never be me. And those sort of people can have a really loud voice. And when you're running a business or in sales and and you're not kind of that fully kind of red, full on sort of person, you're kind of quite a nice, amiable, decent sort of person, that critical voice can be really loud. And I think that's, again, when it comes to mindset, again, why is coaching and mentoring important? Because they can be the levelers that get you back into a place where the circle of people and experiences that you keep front of mind are the things that lift you up,
Yeah.
rather than having the voices like those laggards who will drag you down. And some of those voices can be your parents, your children, your
Yeah.
brothers and
People
sisters.
close to you.
That's
Yeah.
that's really hard,
Yeah.
really hard. So mentally, I sometimes kind of mentally have this bubble around me, and I think if there's negativity about my business and what I'm trying to do, I'll listen to it if I think that negativity is kind of balanced and can be useful feedback. But if it's negative for negative's sake, and it's that type of laggard mentality, it just bounces off.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, great. Yeah, I know, range
Yeah.
anxiety. Yeah. Yeah, well, get on with it. And I
Yeah.
don't even engage in the conversation. I'm not even bothered about trying to convince them because they're unconvincible and they're
Yeah.
not important. Not
And
important.
I've actually had to say a few times to people, I'm not available for this conversation. And it took a
Yeah.
little bit of coaching to get to that point, but
Yeah.
lack, recession, no one's got any money. I'm like, I just can't be in them circles. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be, because for purpose driven, that's a
Mm.
really like unhelpful, low quality thinking. And we want
Yeah.
to be like, depending on how you are with the universe, but like vibrating high. We want to be in like a high energy, because we want to be
Totally.
giving out our best stuff to our clients who are always there. There's always clients, and there are always people looking for what you're selling, and they're out there right
Hmm.
now trying to search for it, and they're searching for you. So what can you do to help get seen and get in front of them, and like shift that
Yeah.
mindset that way? So I always think, if it's on you and it feels uncomfortable, because it's on you, because you're like internal thoughts about you,
Yeah.
self-critical, get it onto a client. And a really good question I ask my clients is, what would your audience find really helpful right now? What was the one
Right.
thing you could go and put
Hmm.
out there right now to help someone else? Go and do that.
Hmm.
And then it just snowballs from there, and opportunities come from there. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think that is so good, Pete. So cleaning up the relationship you've got with money, sales, talking about it so that you can help other people and you can help yourself more, and really
Hmm.
buying into that value. If you're not sure of your own value and benefit of your product, and you can't go as deep as like, oh, it just saves time, like, yeah, but why is that important? Like, go a few levels
Yeah.
deeper,
Yeah.
then do that work and
Hmm.
see what difference you get. I love it.
Yeah.
So, just to summarize, tell everybody how they can reach you.
I think LinkedIn is probably the best way. And so if you search for Pete or Peter Starr and Chilli on LinkedIn, then that gets through to my profile, connect on there, messages, all that sort of stuff,
Yeah,
links to the websites. We love a follow on Chilli and a follow on Wayvie. So
lovely.
Wayvie is still that kind of little annoying baby child that we're still kind of trying to accelerate the growth of. So all of that interaction is fantastic. But like I said, I'm a bit of a people pleaser. I'm really open to conversations, informal conversations. I've thought about this. Have you got a clue about blah? Then yeah, and if we can't help, then we'll try and redirect somebody who can.
Yeah,
Um,
lovely.
we're kind of pretty can do, pretty pragmatic
Yeah,
bunch. So yeah, LinkedIn's the best way to contact us.
perfect. Lovely. So, thank you so much for your time, Pete. And again, give us a follow and a subscribe for more so you don't miss any episodes. And I'll see you soon. Thank you for listening to Making Sales Simple, a podcast by Helen Tebay, the sales lady. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube and follow me on Spotify for more.